What is up, YouTube? My name is Vailthrin, and this is my Lucky Hit variant of a Twisting Blades build. This build utilizes the core setup of Twisting Blades, but instead of running an ultimate skill, I'm running Concealment paired with the Infiltrator's aspect to give us access to 4 poison traps while we are stealthed, as well as another way to break crowd control. I'm currently taking advantage of a 25% lucky hit chance Cowl of the Nameless, paired with a 50% lucky hit chance aspect of Shared Misery to help us spread our crowd control effects. The most efficient way to take advantage of this is to open a fight with Concealment, run into a group and place 2 to 4 traps, hit Shadow Imbuement in the middle of the group to trigger Vulnerable from the Exploit Paragon Glyph, hit 2 Twisting Blades to break Stealth, and then we're going to Shadow Step to the furthest enemy hit by your trap, hit Shadow Imbuement again if the traps reset your cooldown, and then we're going back to Twisting Blades. So the reason we want to Shadow Step to an enemy hit by our trap is because Shadow Step has a 100% lucky hit chance. So in my case, that is a 50% chance to spread the knockdown effect from the traps to unaffected enemies, which in turn also gives us 12% increased strike chance against those enemies from the concussive passive in our skill tree. Another thing to keep in mind is that Shadow Step breaks crowd control effects. Because of this, I like to run Ravager's aspect for a second charge of Shadow Step, meaning we have 3 ways to break crowd control, as well as different options to either reset a fight with Concealment or jump across the room to a less populated area and avoid incoming damage. I have been consistently running the key passive Momentum since the conception of this build for a few reasons. The first being that I have opted out of running flat damage reduction aspects in favor of a hilariously strong combo that I came across today, and this passive offers 20% damage reduction at max stacks. So given the playstyle of Twisting Blades, it's really easy to maintain 3 stacks of momentum, which in turn plays a key role in this build. Our survivability stems from a 3-part gear combo starting with Aspect of the Stolen Vigor. 3 stacks of momentum, this aspect gives me 807 health per second. This is before any healing received buffs, which we aren't really running many, but this brings me to our second piece of the combo, the Unique Pants Temerity. This is a perfectly crafted unique for the survivability option I settled on for this build. This unique is going to give us a barrier for a large percentage, in my case 68% of our total health. I think you can see where this is going. So given that there is no cooldown on when the barrier is generated, as long as we have 3 stacks of momentum, we essentially have a permanent barrier. Even in dungeons with enemies 10 levels above me, the sheer amount of healing to barrier ratio is insane. Now, if you've played far enough into the game, have done most of the dungeons, etc., you've probably seen most of the aspects that we have access to. So the last part of this combo should really be no surprise. The Conceited aspect is going to give us a massive near permanent flat damage percentage buff due to the fact that we have a near permanent barrier. This combo is incredibly strong. I currently have this on my amulet to give it 50% increased power, but given that this is a flat damage percentage, it could be argued that this would be better slotted on our bow for the 100% bonus, and it might be, but I haven't gotten as far as testing that because I generally have Blade Dancer's aspect on my bow to scale Twisting Blades as much as possible. So for those of you that are new to Rogue, Blade Dancer's aspect is what makes our core skill do the things that it do, and by that I mean rotating around us for a short duration and dealing increased damage the further the blades travel back to you after they unlodge themselves from your enemy's skulls. Oh, my bad, got a little dark there. Anyways, moving on. I'm fairly certain that Aspect of Corruption is going to be a staple for this build because of how much vulnerable we dish out, and given that our main burst damage source comes from Shadow Imbuement, it just makes sense to increase the Imbuement's overall potency against vulnerable enemies. For our last aspect, I think this one could go either way, depending on your playstyle, but I opted for the Vengeful aspect since this is a lucky hit variant, giving us 9% crit strike chance at max stacks. Since the trigger is making enemies vulnerable, this aspect works particularly well when paired with the Exploit Paragon Glyph. The other option here would be to run the Starlight aspect. Since our survivability is based on health per second, this aspect gives you a ton of extra resource gain. Now the reason I'm not running Starlight is because I'm running the Inner Sight specialization. This specialization gives us an Inner Sight gauge, which when filled gives us unlimited resource for 4 seconds. Pretty neat. So with the ability to teleport to specific targets via Shadow Step, it's fairly easy to manage resources in my opinion. So if you've made it this far in the video, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to watch my channel. I haven't had much success or put too much effort into YouTube before, but watching my Druid video break 500 views in 2 days for a very low sub channel felt amazing and really gave me the motivation to double down on my content, strive to make better content, and ultimately build an engaging community with all of you. That being said, I have covered quite a bit of the build, but I want to run down the skill tree to cover anything that I missed here and then give you a brief overview of my Paragon board. Alright, so for our basic skill, we're taking Fundamental Puncture. Puncture is going to give us access to a slow every third attack, as well as 2 seconds vulnerable when 2 blades hit an enemy. Now, for the core of our build, we're going to be taking Advanced Twisting Blades for the cooldown reduction when they pass through enemies, 5 out of 5 here. We are also going to max out Sturdy and Siphoning Strikes here for some added survivability. For our agility skill, we are taking Methodical Shadow Step for the 2-second stun, which is going to be useful against priority targets such as shamans, wraiths, etc., as well as providing us with 2 charges to break crowd control. We have 3 maxed out passives here as well. Rugged for damage over time reduction, Weapon Mastery for more flat damage percentage because we are dual wielding swords, and Concussive for crit strike chance against enemies knocked down by Poison Trap. We are opting for 2 subterfuge skills. For concealment, we only take the first modifier for the 40 energy upon entering stealth. This point may be able to go somewhere else, but from what I can see, this is the best place for it. Next, we take countering Poison Trap to give us a 30% chance to reset our Shadow Imbuement. Since we can place 4 traps in stealth, that's 4 chances to reset, so we get a lot of free imbuments this way. Given how much vulnerable we can apply, we're going to throw a point into Exploit to get to the Malice passive and max that out for more vulnerable damage. For imbuments, we are taking Mixed Shadow Imbuement. I was originally running Blended Shadow Imbuement to help trigger vulnerable, but since I activated the Exploit Paragon glyph, we don't need the vulnerable trigger from the explosion anymore, so it's just better in this instance to take more damage. This is also going to be a 5 out of 5. And then perhaps the most interesting passive choice that I've made, I put 3 points into Shadow Crash. Yeah, I mean, yell at me all you want, it's only a 10% chance, whatever. My thought process here is basically this is a lucky hit focused build for the most part. We aren't running dash, so we don't have slow. Shadow Step is a single target stun, so in all reality, our main form of crowd control is the Poison Trap. That is just giving us, so this is just giving us an almost 2-second stun when it procs. And I'm not really a fan of putting these points anywhere else for the build. So we're going to max out Precision Imbuement for more crit strike chance for imbued skills, a point in Deadly Venom to get us to 3 points in Debilitating Toxins for some damage reduction against poison enemies, and finally, we're taking 3 points in Trap Mastery for even more crit strike chance against vulnerable and crowd controlled enemies after Poison Trap activates. So that pretty much covers the skill tree. Gems are pretty simple. Rubies in the armor, emeralds in the weapons, skulls in the jewelry. And then before I talk about my Paragon, I just want to warn you, I have no idea if this is even remotely close to what I should be doing with it, but as you can see, it does work. So, we're going to start right, grabbing Prime and Max HP. I'm using the Closer glyph here because we have a lot of dexterity. It gives us Cutthroat damage, which benefits Twisting Blades, as well as 10% damage reduction. From there, we go left for Skillful. I decided on Cheap Shot for our first board. So you want the legendary node as close to your first board here as possible. We're going to go left for Oppress and all the rare nodes there. Then go straight for Cheap Shot. Now we're going to move to the center of the board to grab Devious and its rare nodes, as well as putting Exploit in our glyph slot here so we can easily hit the strength requirement. This is the point of the build where we apply Vulnerable to everything. So with that in mind, we're going to move left to our next board, picking up Calculated and its rare nodes along the way. Exploit Weakness is the only choice here in my opinion. Go straight for the glyph slot for Canny, which will increase all non-physical damage we do. Grab Artifice and all of the rare nodes here. Then the choice from here is kind of yours. I think it's best to go towards the bottom to grab Hunter Killer and then work towards our legendary node. But yeah, the option's pretty much up to you there. So that pretty much covers my build. If you enjoyed this build, let me know in the comments what you like, what you think I could improve on. I'm really putting a lot of conscious effort into how I can best present these videos with audience retention in mind, and I'm very open to constructive criticism here. Also, consider subscribing if you like the content. I plan on putting out a lot more content when season drops and would love to see you all here in the future. Until next time.